Welcome to the Voices That Propel Us, stories of justice, action, and community, a space where justice meets action and community voices rise. Each episode, we bring you stories from the front lines, changemakers, disruptors, and everyday heroes who are building a more just, equitable, and liberated world. This is more than a podcast. It's a call to listen, learn, and move together. You were just listening to music from the incredibly talented Stephen Kong. You can find him on Spotify and Bandcamp. Today we have with us Maya Lilly. Maya is a producer, speaker, and climate storyteller leading the Years Project, the Emmy-winning media nonprofit redefining how the world understands climate change. With a background spanning documentary filmmaking, environmental science, and performance, Maya brings a rare blend of creative direction and scientific insight to climate communication. Her mission is bold and clear: to use storytelling as a catalyst for justice, empathy, and measurable climate action. Well, hi, Maya. Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me today and be on this podcast. I'm excited to have this conversation with you, but how are you doing today?
Hey, Denise. Thank you for having me on this podcast. I'm so proud of all my podcasters because I know how hard it is to do a podcast. So you're just kicking butt. Good for you.
No, I appreciate
I'm happy
that.
to be here with you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you putting that trust in me and helping me to, build this platform. But yeah, I've been having a great time too. I just started back in August and having wonderful conversations with people and learning so much. So yeah, I appreciate your expertise and wisdom as well.
Aw, just August? I had no idea. That's great. Good for you.
Yeah, it's still my baby.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, but just to start off, can you take us back to a moment when you first realized the power of storytelling in shaping how people understand climate change?
The pause is because there's such an abundance. I had an overabundance just come to my mind. And so, filing down to just one moment is pretty hard as a storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was in my undergraduate environmental studies degree, which I did on environment as a means of, or theater as a means of social change, particularly with the environment and looking at environmental issues. I did a play that I had written that I called Still Time. And it was a double entendre of there's still time to do something, but we're also kind of stuck in this still time where nobody's doing anything about these overwhelming environmental and climate crises. And I did it as part of my thesis, and I kind of was expecting, maybe an audience of 20 to show up, but word spread around the college, and I started getting these really huge audiences, this sold out shows. And everyone in college, I had this section on, I was a young and very eager environmentalist, and I had a section on factory farming. And everybody kept joking afterwards that I had turned the entire college plant-based vegetarian because of my show. And even my parents who love their steak and their, ackee and saltfish and curried goat, curried chicken. Right. My dad's Jamaican. Even they actually went vegetarian. They went plant-based for maybe a month, I think. And it didn't last, but it was a very proud moment for me, who had been languishing in trying to convince them. It was something about the theater and the play and the marriage between the emotion and the heart with the facts that really finally moved them and the audience. Yeah. So that when I was 20 years old or 22-ish, that was when it really hit home that, I see. Yeah. We really have to craft the story carefully and with as much heart as possible.
Yeah, no, that's so beautiful. Thank you for just sharing that. And so your work bridges environmental science, documentary, filmmaking, and performance. So how do you see these worlds coming together through your journey?
Well, they have come together, and then I've run parallel to them. So stories are important because the brain needs meaning. And what I love about stories, and what I think most humans love about stories, is we love a good story arc. We want to know why things are going well for somebody so we can do more of it, or why things are going badly for somebody so we could stop doing that. You know, so like, how did he get the woolly mammoth for the clan?
Right.
How did he bring down the woolly mammoth? How did he put the ring into the fire so that, you know, Sauron and the, you know, the evil forces that be won't rule the land of the hobbits? Right. You know, how did she escape the rodents of unusual sizes in, you know, Princess Bride, rest in peace, Rob Reiner. And so, you know, we want to know the cause and effect connections. And so when we peek at this underlying pattern, that's what a story arc is. You know, it's peeking at this underlying pattern of seeing what the trajectory is in the two disparate points in your life.
Okay.
So I've had a lot of like very disparate points that only now it's becoming clear of like what the deeper message was for me. You know, I studied at Juilliard. I went to conservatory for acting. Okay. And when I was there, I had this epiphany, basically, is the best way to describe it, where I realized that the arts should be acting beyond a place which society has reached, rather than being reactionary and just holding up a mirror. And I, at the time, was learning all about the environment and deforestation and, you know, ocean pollution and animal treatment in factory farms and the incredible carbon footprint of agriculture and climate change. And at the time, like, climate wasn't really a part of a daily conversation. This is pre-Google when I first went to college, right? Right. And definitely, like, we had like, you know, we had computer labs, but we didn't have our own laptops necessarily. So it was harder to Google the IPCC report like Greta Thunberg was able to do, right? Right. And so I was interested in, okay, well, if we have this very huge problem, how are the arts responding to it? And unfortunately, at the time, the arts weren't en masse, except for a few kind of guerrilla theater groups. And so I made the hard decision to leave this very hard to get into prestigious school. And I was very clear with my professors. They were kind of chagrined that I was leaving. And I was like, I don't feel like we are talking about what's important with our Shakespeare and our Chekhov and our Strindberg. It just feels dated. Like we are facing the biggest story never told, which is that we are making our planet uninhabitable. Right. You know, we're making it unlivable for future humans and for all other species. And that's huge. Every theater and every film should be talking about this. So, you know, I left. And then after I did another environmental studies undergrad, I went right to LA. I went right to the megaphone. And culture influences policy change to me. Okay. And what influences culture but storytelling? Right. And so to me, I think I went to LA because I wanted us to be telling the biggest story we could at the highest level to the world about what was going on. And I had a bit of a rude awakening. I was very idealistic when I got to LA, and I thought, well, it's that thing when you're young, you're like, if I just tell people what's happening, everybody will do something. My cat just nodded. She's like, yes, we all thought that.
No, thank you so much for sharing that. And I know you touched on this, but I'd love to like further explore it with you. So you often describe storytelling as a catalyst for climate action. So what does action actually look like when the story does land well?
Well, action is tapping into the incredible network of climate organizers that have already done all the work for decades and helping them out. Right. I think a lot of people approach the climate space, if they're new to it, like, oh, I have to tackle this whole problem on my own and start from scratch. We have all the solutions we need, which is born on the backs of countless activists and organizers who've been doing the hard work on the ground, fighting for policy, fighting for climate politicians like the Sunrise Movement, fighting for laws that are taking the pollution or decarbonizing out of buildings in New York, like the New York Renews Coalition, you know, groups that are trying to electrify the grid and electrify everything. There are groups that are divesting banks from fossil fuels, you know, like Banking for Good. So, you know, I think that's the first thing is tapping into this incredible web of experience that's already, instead of reinventing the wheel, just join the ride.
Yeah, no, that's really
you know?
beautiful. So, yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but what makes a climate story compelling enough to move people from awareness into responsibility?
Ooh, girl, this is my geek out
I'd love to
nerd
hear your
happy
thoughts
place.
though. Uh-huh.
This is my little happy place because
Okay.
I love some stories, and I've been geeking out
Yeah.
about stories since I was a kid. And my
Okay.
mom is a drama teacher, by the way, so she also was
Okay.
directing stories as I was growing up. So I was
Right.
knee deep in it. Um, so there are a few principles that Hollywood knows how to do really well that I
Okay.
think other businesses and definitely the climate movement have not done really well.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the climate movement had mostly been the stories had been told by scientists and
Mm.
the fossil fuel industry. The
Okay.
scientists did their best, but oftentimes their papers weren't available to the public, and they
Okay.
speak from a facts-based idea
Right.
of the knowledge, and they often are pretty wonky, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then likewise, the fossil fuel industry, which has made billions of dollars
Mm-hmm.
on products that their own scientists knew would
Yeah.
cause destruction of the earth, they have put so much money into targeted campaigns to
Okay.
convince us that the science was not correct when it was, because
Uh-huh.
their own scientists also proved it, that they were doing all they could, which they weren't, and that they
Mm-hmm.
weren't climate criminals, you know?
Uh-huh.
So we have an outsized issue, and there are simple concepts that Hollywood does
Mm-hmm.
inherently because they're masters at storytelling. One of
Right.
those is like, make something shareable. What
Yeah.
makes something shareable to a person, even on social media? Usually it's something that moves you. It's something that
Yeah.
moves you emotionally, right?
Right.
It's a baby orangutan that, was orphaned. Think like
Mm-hmm.
how popular are those animal
Mm-hmm.
memes?
Yeah.
I have like these 3 chains with girlfriends with these animal videos, and it's
Yeah.
like the baby that was orphaned, and then Sheldrick Wildlife Trust takes the baby and is helping the baby. That those
Yeah.
people share them because they're like, oh my god, this baby has a home now. It makes you feel something.
Right.
So
Right.
is it shareable? Is it a new perspective? Are we putting a new spin on it? Like
Yeah.
people like the unexpected, they like surprise. That's why we watch TV shows that have a new idea,
Mm-hmm.
like Pluribus. I just started watching Apple
I
TV's
just
Pluribus.
finished that. Would you? Yeah, I'd love to hear what you thought about that. Yeah, I just
Well,
finished watching
I
it
was
over the weekend.
I was talking about it with my boyfriend, and I was like, how clever
Yeah.
they are that
Yeah.
they took the tired trope of alien invasion,
Mm-hmm.
and then they're going to be awful. They're going to destroy humanity. They're going to do it in all the worst ways. They're going to, take our souls or whatever,
Uh-huh.
all the movies that we've seen for countless decades.
Yeah.
And they flipped it so that they're lovely, that this
Yeah.
alien species is
Right.
lovely. I think it's such a cool idea.
No, me.
And
So,
it's that
yeah.
surprise.
No, yeah. No, that's what I've been thinking about too. I wonder like where they're going to take it because I'm like, there's nothing sinister about these folks yet. It's just it is weird. There's like some creepy aspects, but they're not like sinister in terms of like other alien, invasion, like destroy humanity. And I don't know, I've been thinking about that
Right.
a lot too. Like there are good points because I think I like do appreciate individuality and stuff too, but there's something to say about like being in the collective and what hurts one person hurts the other person, and I thought that was really beautiful. So I'm just interested to see where they're going to take the story, if it's like a positive thing or if it's something like, oh no, this is bad for humanity, we want to get rid of this. But yeah, I
Totally.
really love it. Yeah.
Well, and that's because, the conflict is with her. The conflict is
Right.
internal. The
Right.
conflict is in, should I stay the course
Yeah.
knowing that this is not okay, even
Mm-hmm.
though everybody, even the other survivors, are totally digging the
Yeah.
alien invasion, you
Right.
know, without giving away anything. There's like, a kind of mic drop on the last episode of the first season where you're like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so maybe it's not all sunny as
Uh-huh.
we think it is. But that brings me to my next point, is that what Hollywood does really well with storytelling is conflict.
Right.
Stories are
Right.
a person confronting a problem and overcoming the problem. Period.
Mm-hmm.
Period. End of story. Like that is, and I cannot tell you how many times, how many climate weeks I've been to, how
Yeah.
many, podcasts I've listened to where someone will get on, talk about storytelling, and they literally will not say an actual story. And
Mm-hmm.
of course, this is like in the Western storytelling tradition. So there are
Okay.
other world traditions that may not incorporate this as much. But
Mm-hmm.
if you have a character who's trying to solve a problem,
Yeah.
then you have an emotional arc, you have an emotional journey that the
Mm-hmm.
audience goes on. Pluribus, she's trying to solve the problem. She's trying to
Right.
figure out what to do and if they have a way of not turning. If she can
Right.
figure out how to turn everybody back, right? So
Right.
she's trying to overcome a problem. That's what I try to imbue into my climate
Okay.
documentary work is okay,
Okay.
what are the high stakes? What's the urgency? And that's what
Yeah.
Hollywood does, and that's what we need in storytelling.
Yeah, no, I really love that. And thank you for sharing. And next, I'd love to talk with you about the Years Project. So, can you share a story from the Years Project that led to a tangible shift? So, this can be whether in policy, cultural, or community action.
Yeah, yeah, I love this. When I'm looking for a story, I'm looking at okay, what is the campaign that
Okay.
is rooted in the story, and what will this do? Like, what can an audience help the
Right.
story that they're watching? How can they help?
Uh-huh.
And so when the East Palestine train derailment happened, you probably saw it. It wasn't on mainstream news for a while, but it was
Okay.
being shared on social media. And it was like this giant mushroom cloud explosion that happened over this town in Ohio.
Oh,
Basically,
wow.
a train caught fire on the tracks.
Okay.
And they were worried because the train was carrying a very toxic chemical called vinyl chloride, which
Uh-huh.
actually goes to make like records. You know, it's like a
Okay.
plastic, and they didn't do the proper protocol, which is
Mm-hmm.
when we interviewed like regional EPA, they said they would have like kind of what you do when you get mercury fillings taken out, where they
Okay.
balloon you and they suck out the air in these like carefully cartoned things. They take it out.
Uh,
They didn't do that. They blew up the vinyl chloride over the town. Nobody knew who gave the order, but the town
wow.
started getting sick.
Okay.
Kids, rashes, eye problems. People were going to the emergency room because they couldn't breathe, and it was getting
Wow.
in the water. And
Okay.
so when I got to East Palestine with my amazing DP,
Mm-hmm.
um, we basically were like, "What do you guys need? What do you want? How can we help?"
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they said, "We want Governor Mike DeWine to declare a federal emergency so we can free up some funds to clean up the mess.
Okay.
We want our officials to listen to us because so far they're not. They're
Mm-hmm.
not really paying attention. And we want vinyl chloride to be banned. We want it banned.
Okay.
And, vinyl chloride, I should mention, is like, petrochemicals in general are the fossil fuel industry's way of staying alive when they know that their time is limited, right?
Oh, okay.
So they've shifted to things like plastics, which is made up of fossil fuels.
Uh-huh.
So we partnered with an organization called Beyond Plastics, and
Okay.
they wanted to target the EPA with our documentary. And we did a bunch of different cuts, and we literally sent it to regional EPA and federal EPA so that they could see the story and what
Okay.
was happening to this town. And because of our
Wow.
documentary, the EPA placed it on the list of chemicals to consider banning
Oh,
entirely.
wow. Because of
So
the
it wouldn't be
documentary?
traveling by train. Yeah.
Oh,
We could
wow.
see
That's
in real
incredible.
time that the
Wow.
campaign worked. So
Okay.
it was such an amazing moment of, hey, yeah, again, back to
Yeah.
my, college self. It's not
Yeah.
just about telling a story for the story's sake. It's like, what is the point of the story in the world? How is it influencing the wider environment that you're in?
Yeah. No, that's really beautiful. And I think that's important what you say too is like that emotional connection is what resonates more with people versus like just purely seeing facts or statistics and stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah, which actually is the reason why like I wanted to start this podcast too, because I feel like there's so much labeling, stigmatizing, and like stereotyping of folks. Whereas like I want to tell the human stories behind, like people being impacted by these horrible policies that are happening right now because it's like I don't know if people realize, like, these are humans behind these labels. I think it just like, I've talked to some guests too about like, once you dehumanize someone, people be okay doing these like horrendous acts to people. But once people actually see that there's a person, a human being behind this, label, that's when people start having more empathy and being like, what, this isn't okay. So, that's really cool work that you're doing.
Totally. I saw that a lot with like Prop 8 and the
Ah,
people that
yeah.
were against, gay marriage legislation in
Right.
California. I obviously was very for it. And I just kept trying to introduce gay friends to those people because,
Okay.
the people that were against Prop 8, because I was like, I really feel like these two groups should know each other, because
That's
part of the
beautiful.
reason you don't understand that this person wants to get married is because
Hmm.
you don't understand it's the same desire that you have,
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not in your worldview. It's not in your realm of understanding.
Right. No, thank you for sharing that. And I'd love to hear you speak more on this too. So, how has working alongside frontline and BIPOC organizers reshaped the dominant climate narrative that you see in mainstream media?
Well, frontline and BIPOC organizers, they are the first hit by climate. They're hit the hardest.
Hmm.
They often don't have the generational wealth that
Right.
white communities have to
Uh-huh.
rebound from them. But they
Hmm.
often, what they have is they have like all the solutions. They've already been fighting the
Right.
disenfranchisement for years. And so they know exactly what solutions that we
Uh-huh.
need to be promoting in that area. And so they're their own local experts, and so
Yeah.
when I was interviewing, Miss Sharon Levine in
Hmm.
St. James Parish, she knew so much about Formosa Plastics plant. She knew exactly how much it would triple the pollution in her neighborhood. She had talked to scientists. She had talked
Yeah.
to the Vietnamese parent company, because
Hmm.
Formosa is Taiwanese
Okay.
company. Forgive me.
Uh-huh.
Um, and she was activated because she, again, good story, she had a
Right.
problem that she was facing that she was trying to overcome, right? And
Hmm.
so she is a local expert. And
Hmm.
I could have, easily flown in a bunch of scientists who could have told the story, but what she had was the
Yeah.
heart and the gumption to fight that anyone outside of the issue wouldn't have had.
Yeah.
So, so I like to tell a lot of indigenous stories, and
Okay.
same thing. It's like people know their lands, and indigenous.
Right.
Thank God for the indigenous, because they have centuries of living in right relation with
Hmm.
ecosystems all around them at a time that we so desperately need that. They
Yeah.
are living examples of how to do that, and so I like to prioritize their storytelling.
Okay.
And they always know. They always know exactly like what is needed in the area and what is not
Yeah.
needed and how to fight it.
Yeah.
So I think just because like culturally we often will discount the disenfranchised,
Right.
I think that that's a fallacy. I think that we should be turning to them first because they know exactly what they
Yeah.
need.
No, actually, I wanted to ask you about that. So I think it's wonderful how you center those voices, but what do you think happens when those voices get excluded from these conversations around climate justice?
When voices get excluded, then you have a bunch of, white men in the room telling people what to do, like
Mm-hmm.
what happened with the government of Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the same old removed, not having the shareholders in the same space. And so then you
Right.
often like, I think a lot of people are scared of conflict. And
Yeah.
so that's why they'll often disclude, not include people in the space. But conflict actually brings, I find conflict brings better
Uh-huh.
solutions,
Okay.
because when you argue about something, you come to a higher resolution than if you just thought of it on your own.
Uh-huh.
And again, that's that story arc. The problem, what's the problem? What are you overcoming? And
Yeah.
so having as many different, stakeholders in a room figuring
Right.
out a problem, that's magic. That's where the magic happens.
Yeah. No, I think that's so wonderful too. And I think that's what needs to happen more like elected officials actually going to the community to speak with them versus like from like top down to be like, oh, this is what we think your community needs versus like, no, actually talk to community, see what their needs are. Cause I think a lot of times communities are like overlooked, just in my own experience.
Yeah, and I've seen so many examples in my work. Like for
Hmm.
example, I did this. I got invited to the mostly indigenous Hawaiian island of Molokai to tell a
Okay.
story about a group of people,
Hmm.
Oahu Energy Cooperative, who were fighting for community solar. So
Okay.
solar that's shared between many community members and is not privatized on a roof, but is
Uh-huh.
the grid is shared. And they've been fighting their monopoly utility, HECO, which is the
Hmm.
same utility that started the Lahaina fire. that
Oh, okay.
burned down Lahaina
Wow.
on Maui.
Okay.
And what they kept saying when I would ask them in interview, they kept saying, Hiko never talks to us. This monopoly
Oh,
utility never
wow.
comes and talks to us. They just tell us what we're doing with our own energy. And
Mm.
Molokai is one of the most, Hawaii is one of the most isolated land masses on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Everything they have gets shipped in, and energy rates, when I was there, gas prices were like 4 times the average.
Wow.
People are paying astronomical rates for their energy. And so what the indigenous community wanted was they wanted
Right.
their energy democracy back. They wanted to have control of their energy, and they were fighting a utility that wasn't even talking to them, you
Wow.
know?
Wow.
And that's a common story that happens in town after
Right.
city after state, right?
Yeah. No, that's why like actually I wanted to talk with you next about like how can we like listen to communities rather than like being extractive. So just in your experience, how do we ensure storytelling doesn't extract from communities, but instead builds real power and reciprocity?
Well, so again, I think it's baked into the cake when you first approach a community. So
Okay.
in filmmaking, we have kind of development, and then we
Uh-huh.
have pre-production. Production is when you shoot, and then post-production after the shooting, where you take the stuff to your editor. And
Uh-huh.
then, so when I'm in development and I'm even researching the idea of the
Okay.
story, I'm already thinking about what does the community need help with from a larger
Mm-hmm.
audience. So
Okay.
if, say you, Denise,
Mm-hmm.
have a unwieldy cat that is
Okay.
not eating its food, right?
Right.
And suddenly you told that story to, 50 million people,
Mm-hmm.
what would you want out of it? You have a
Yeah.
problem. Suddenly you have all these eyes on it. How can they help? And that's
Right.
not a model that mainstream news or mainstream Hollywood does.
Mm-hmm.
Hollywood doesn't license out the content, and they definitely don't like bake the impact into the cake.
Mm-hmm.
And then news, they fly in, they get the bites, they fly out. Like, and community doesn't have any say. So
Yeah.
it's not a perfect science. I mean, I work as best I can to find the hybrid of really good
Okay.
storytelling technique
Yeah.
with what the community has to offer, so that we
Mm-hmm.
can find the hybrid together. Because if I
I
just
love
go in
that.
with what the community has to offer, sometimes you get really bad storytelling that,
Okay.
because they don't, it's not their field, right?
Right.
Or if I just go in with this is what I want to do, you get a lot of pushback from the community,
Okay.
because they're like, who are you? And it's extractive. So what I
Right.
try to do is like, okay, what can we help you with? I come from an organizing background. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, here's my background. Here's why I want to collaborate with you on this. And
Okay.
then here's the kicker. And this is what Years Project, my company, does
Yeah.
differently than Hollywood, is even though our background is Hollywood, we
Okay.
gift the content often to the groups on the ground.
Okay.
As a nonprofit, we get funded by foundations who want to
Okay.
help the climate
Okay.
crisis. And so we'll give the groups the content so that they can use it for fundraising. They can use it to bring on new
Wow.
members. They can have the B-roll for their website, for their
Okay.
Instagram, like they can use it. And that's like a huge, huge, big deal, because filmmaking is expensive. Like
Okay.
when I tell people how much a shoot costs, they're just like, are you kidding me? And it's because you're flying in DPs, you're paying for the
Okay.
camera rental, you're paying for the lens rental. So
Yeah.
when I approach a community, I make them very aware of what the process is going to be,
Okay.
what the worth of this is, find
Right.
out what they need, and see how I can help them with that as an organizer and a filmmaker.
Okay. Okay. No, thank you for saying that. And yeah, I actually wanted to talk more about that with you too, because I really love how you like want to make that emotional connection with folks to be able to resonate with them. But so how do you balance like scientific accuracy with emotional resonance in multimedia storytelling?
We have fact checkers. We do have
Okay.
researchers. We do make sure that we're putting out the correct information. Every now
Hmm.
and then you'll get someone in an interview that gives you a really good bite,
Okay.
and they got the year wrong.
Uh-huh.
So
Oh
the
no.
secret cheat is you cut off
Uh-huh.
that part that they got wrong, or you
Uh-huh.
use the other bite that might not be as emotionally
Yeah.
great, but at least they got the fact right. So we
Uh-huh.
do have a very intensive writers room process, which I
Okay.
would encourage.
Uh-huh.
Not a lot of documentarians do that, but I
Hmm.
think it's important. So we'll go through many different string outs, rough
Okay.
cuts, fine cuts to make sure that we don't miss anything. And then we do quality control at the end to make sure that all of these eyes have not missed. And you'll be surprised how often people will miss some glaring thing. And we're all like,
really?
oh my God. Yeah, it's
Wow,
it's
you said
maddening.
like glaring things too? It's not like
Well, if
minor
you
things like,
see a story enough
yeah,
in
no,
the
that's
edit
true.
room,
Yeah, no, that's true.
you become really accustomed to it. And so you
Right.
kind of start seeing something as fact. So it can happen to
Uh-huh.
us too, but we look for that. We try to be very careful with that because
Yeah.
we have enough climate misinformation from the fossil fuel industry. We don't need more from our side.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. And I'd love to talk with you more about hope. So for myself, like personally, I like to have more of like a hopeful, like I think perspective, in terms of like, making changes that we want to see in the world. But, I do realize like, facing the reality sometimes I can get pretty cynical about that as well. So hope can sometimes feel naive in the face of climate realities. So how do you practice hope without minimizing the urgency, or the grief?
I was just listening to Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson's podcast
Okay.
on my way home, and
Uh-huh.
she won the Time magazine's like Time 100
Mm-hmm.
award, where she had to give a speech, and she has this great episode where she gives the speech. It's like a 6-minute speech,
Wow.
and she says, "Fuck hope. Where are the solutions?
Uh-huh.
Fuck hope. Give me a strategy." That's it. She says, "Fuck
Yeah.
hope. Where's my strategy?"
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little bit more like I like Nelson Mandela's quote where he says, may your choices reflect your hopes, not your fears.
Oh, okay.
And I think there's some meeting between the two ideas. Like
Okay.
her idea is like it's not hopeless. We have all the solutions we need
Uh-huh.
right now. All we need to do is ramp them up with speed and scale. That's
Okay.
it. It's a
Mm-hmm.
very simple idea. And she's right.
Yeah.
I think on most days I don't have hope. I think this
Okay.
is a huge challenge. We
Right.
have to change a
Right.
lot of the systems in our society, but
Yeah.
I choose to have hope in what I do. So, kind of like when you
Yeah.
have depression, and therapists will tell you, go out in the community and help somebody else, and
Mm-hmm.
it gets rid of your depression. Go like volunteer
Yeah.
at a unhoused shelter, and
Yeah.
immediately you feel better. I choose every day to work on climate with my job. I
Okay.
choose every day to have a garden where I can learn how to grow organic food and have like my salads just come right from
Yeah.
my earth here.
Okay.
I choose to have belief that every tenth of a degree
Yeah.
in warming is just more, that it's more, it's just a reminder that we just have to keep working. There's
Okay.
no point past which we should stop trying to fix the problem.
Yeah.
It's, we
Yeah.
kind of we did this really nihilist thing as a society where we went from, fossil fuel companies telling us it's all, not real, denial, denial, denial. And then we like kind of jumped to, oh, this is too big. We can't fix it.
Right.
And we missed all the middle steps on the way,
Yeah.
on the path of like,
Yeah.
well, let's try to fix it.
Yeah.
Like if your house was on fire, I don't think your first reaction is, oh, well, that's it. No, can't do it.
Right.
That's it. Bye. Bye, house. Loved having you. I think your first reaction
Yeah.
is, oh my God, what do I need that's important? Let me get that
Yeah.
out. And then you go through each step of a daunting, god awful process that, one of my
Yeah.
besties in LA just has had to deal with because she lost her house in the Altadena
Right.
fire.
Right.
And so she's dealing with the haggling with the insurance company. But
Yeah.
it's like these steps. And for me personally, I feel we have really lost the plot about systemic change versus individual change. You
Right.
know, BP were the people that invented the idea of the carbon footprint, the individual carbon footprint in the
Okay.
early 2000s.
Okay.
So, and they pitched it to us like it was a hero's journey, like only you can save the planet. Find out your carbon footprint with this quiz, and
Yeah.
switch to veggie burgers, or drive less, or change your
Okay.
lights in your house to LEDs. But what that did was it shifted us out of thinking, oh, there's a very big villain in the room, and it's these
Mm.
giant companies that are emitting this
Yeah.
product and are ramping it up and not slowing it down. And
Right.
so it was a sleight of hand trick. It was magic that they did, and it was clever because they used good storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
So what I tell my friends, my community, what I tell, podcast listeners is find the strongest leverage points that have the most bang for the buck that you can in your community. And so I'm looking at you, divest from your bank. Like I don't hear enough people talking about divesting from their banks. That is one of the biggest things we can do. Rainforest Action Network puts out a really good report every year called Banking on Climate Chaos.
Yeah.
And it looks at which banks are funding future fossil fuel extraction.
Okay.
Chase, it's like 196 billion. They float the fossil fuels in the future, right? If you're banking at Chase, get your money out. And then that Chase is not alone. It's like, Citi, Bank of America, they're all in the top 4.
Yeah.
So that's a huge leverage point. And that arguably is a bigger leverage point than changing your light bulbs or driving an electric car, even though we have to electrify everything. So I think really orienting our spirits around the idea of we need everything everywhere all at once. But some things I do will be a little more impactful than other things. And so again, like we don't have to start at scratch. We can join other climate groups that already have a groundswell of knowledge and campaigns going, like the 350.orgs or the Stop the Money Pipeline, and help them as much as we can. And usually what they're doing is they're trying to push or boycott the companies that are intentionally stalling climate action.
Yeah.
The ones that are throwing down to stall climate action, like Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson says, fuck hope, show me the strategy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So electrify everything all the time, go more plant-based. These are, classic, bigger bang for your buck, but also like divest your money, divest your pensions, encourage your parents to do it. Like that has a big impact.
Yeah, totally. I hear you too. Because actually, I want to talk with you more about like what helps keep you grounded as well. Because I don't do that work specifically, but just like my work in like activism, just like working towards social justice. I know that the work can feel like heavy oftentimes. And I think something that I've really realized as I gotten older is like rest and taking care of ourselves itself is like a radical act of resistance too against like, these systems that want to, just try to burn us out and stuff. So with that, how do you stay grounded and motivated while working in such high stakes, emotionally demanding spaces? Like, what is it that keeps you together?
Listen to those words, high stakes, emotionally demanding. You're right. It's high stakes. It's the fate of a planet. It's the fate of future generations.
Yeah.
So there's an amazing ad exec named John Marshall. He started a company called Potential Energy.
Okay.
And he is helping the climate movement do better comms and better storytelling and better advertising. They had the first Super Bowl commercial ever last year.
Okay.
That was like climate moms, and it was moms talking about the impact on their kids.
Okay.
And he did an amazing study of like all these G20 countries all around the world. And basically they tested different messaging, and what he found, the messaging that appealed to everyone, that was so many more points higher than other messaging, was protecting what we love for future generations.
Wow.
And so I find solace in thinking about that when I need to rest and relax. I think about like the things that can regenerate myself and my community. Okay. I try to do joyful things.
Yeah.
I have to take breaks from the climate science on my weekends, where it's like I'm so knee deep in the science Monday through Friday that Saturday, Sunday, give me a comedy, give me Nobody Wants This.
Totally.
Just let me relax my brain a little bit and take some time off. But most importantly for me, solace, I've always found solace in nature.
Okay.
I've been influenced by the deep ecology movement for the last 20 years, which can basically be summed up as recognizing the inherent value of all living beings, not just humans.
Okay,
and
beautiful.
Our civilization is currently set up as like a humans first value system with an economy that doesn't incorporate ecology.
Right.
But humans can't control this incredibly complex world. Yeah. And so I really value the inherent richness of all living beings. And so on my days off, or when I'm really, really exhausted and I just need to refresh myself, my spirit. I go for a walk. I go hang out with my 7 chickens, who are the funniest little animals.
That's
So
awesome.
funny, and they have their own language. They talk to me all the time. They have a special little word that they say when I tuck them in at night. That's a totally different word than they say the rest of the day.
Yeah.
You know, and I try to orient around the idea that like humans are not everything evolution was intending.
Oh, okay.
Humans are a part of ecosystems, and we're not better than ecosystems. Like we currently humans, we aren't belonging to this gorgeous planet in the way that we could. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we think that we're beyond this planet, like the Elon Musks wanting to go to Mars. But humans are only a part of nature. And as such, we can't see our needs supersede ecological balance. So if we are putting things out of balance, then that's on us. And we have to fix it because we're a part of this beautiful, unique planet with oxygen. I do not want to go to Mars. I do not. There is nothing appealing
No,
about
when they
Mars
talk about going to different planets or even the moon, I'm like, we did enough to this planet. Let's not mess up another planet.
Exactly. And that Mars doesn't have elephants last time I checked. And I love an elephant. I think elephants are so magical.
No, that's so beautiful.
I just try to remind myself that there's like really, and I think a lot of people are like this. They're very special beings here on this planet. That it's like if we were children, you know, imagine a child seeing a dolphin for the first time and realizing that the dolphin wants to interact with you.
Yeah.
And is so intelligent, but it lives in the ocean.
Yeah.
Like what the? It's like you couldn't even write about it, you know, in science fiction and have people believe it if we were from other planets. Like there are these dolphins in the ocean that they talk to you and they have names for each other.
Right.
It's a really magical place. So I try to remind myself of that.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. And thank you so much for sharing this. And, you know, something that I want to do with this podcast is show my listeners like how they can really take tangible steps to creating like a positive difference, you know, whether it's in their communities or the broader world. So for listeners who care deeply but don't know where to start, what's one meaningful way that they can engage with this right now?
Well, you can always share our videos.
Okay.
Because we take a lot of time and heart in them. And I'm really proud of the work that we've done at the Years Project or at Years of Living on all social platforms. I think a more general way is we got to talk about this. We got to talk about climate more than we are. And that's, you know, that's something that Katharine Hayhoe, the climate scientist, talks about all the time. She's like, if we just normalize talking about it, then maybe we can normalize coming up with solutions about it, or we can normalize voting in climate politicians. And so I think there's this hesitance to talk about it because we think people will think we're being doomsday, you know, or like reactionary. But there's so many different ways to talk about something, you know, like you can tell a joke about it. You can, you know, do a roundtable about it. You can ask somebody's opinion about it. Like that. I just think the very first step in taking climate action is forcing yourself, you know, ideally, joyfully, and hopefully to engage in conversation about it. And I think that starting place will help you learn more about, you know, yourself, your neighbors, and your talking points than anything else.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing that. And just to further elaborate on that too, what do you think solidarity looks like in the climate movement today? And how can people show up beyond just being like performative?
Well, so God, that was a good question.
Yeah, because I think it's one thing, like, you know, people to say, like, oh, I want a better earth or, you know, whatever. But, like, you know, how can people really show up in solidarity with this movement, you know, beyond just like their words or, you know, just, I think more like superficial, like, yeah, really being an allyship with this.
Well, what I'm weighing right now is not being performative, you know, but also the conflict of that with nitpicking about like you're either all in or it's nothing.
Yeah.
I really think the climate movement has shifted away from the all in. Like, start where you are, start at your zone of genius. It's
Yeah.
like, I have so many climate justice activists that I work with on the
Okay.
ground that are not plant based. And I've been plant based for 28 years. And at first I was surprised by that. I was like, oh, I thought plant based was like the base step. Like, that feels like one of
Okay.
the first steps a lot of people take when they become a climate activist, because they're like, oh, we shouldn't be cutting down the rainforest for cattle.
Uh-huh.
But a lot of people in the South, like, meat is a big culture point for them. And
Mm-hmm.
I've had to learn that, like, just because somebody hasn't taken that step,
Oh,
you know,
okay.
it doesn't mean that they're not doing something. So I think it's I think we have to be careful about, like, you know, being purists
Mm-hmm.
and encouraging true dedication. Like, I think start where you
Yeah.
are. And I mean, I don't know what is and what isn't performative, but what I do
Yeah.
know is comms. And
Okay.
I know that, you know, I think there are a lot of problems we're facing with climate comms, and the main one is
Mm-hmm.
that we're losing the climate crisis
Okay.
communication. We are
Okay.
losing it right now. And we
Uh-huh.
have been losing it because there are billions of dollars being thrown from fossil fuels into this narrative. And
Wow.
so some of the ways I'm encouraging people who want to help from a storytelling perspective with climate is,
Yeah.
we need to match the story with the speed of the crisis. You know,
Mm.
so like when Hurricane Melissa slams Jamaica and everybody's
Uh-huh.
just talking about, you know, the community's loss and the homes and the land management, we have to
Yeah.
say this is climate change. We got to point right to it when it's
Right.
happening.
Yeah.
Another way that we're losing the climate narrative is that the opposition has, like, these really sticky, memorable sound bites. They drive me nuts because they're
Mm.
so good. Like,
Okay.
drill baby drill.
Okay.
That drill baby drill is a great soundbite because it uses the rule of threes.
Okay.
And it's sticky. You remember it. You know, the
Yeah.
climate movement en masse doesn't have like a unified message. We're
Okay.
much more about diversity and letting everybody in. So I encourage, like, any listeners that are like that love communications and love storytelling to really, like, throw down for the climate movement, because we need every single one of you,
Yeah.
because the opposition understands the value of communications. They
Yeah.
100% understand it, and they've been putting so much money behind it.
Uh-huh.
And vast amounts of that money is on climate denial.
Yeah.
So, you
Yeah.
know, the social media space, all that climate denial is being funded, you know? So
Right.
we need to have this groundswell of storytellers really help us out with the climate space. You know, we're doing
Yeah.
all that we can, but we're a small nonprofit, and we just need everybody everywhere all at once.
Yeah, no, that's, you bring up an important point too. Like sometimes when things happen, so, I live out in California and just like the wildfires and everything. And what you're saying too, like I don't know, just in my head, I feel like it is so clearly like a result because this is like climate, but like for, I think, elected officials to kind of brush over and it's like, oh no, this isn't, due to like climate, or like,
They don't even say
climate.
that, Denise.
Yeah.
They don't even say
Yeah.
this isn't climate. They don't even talk about it. When you watch the
Right.
news after the
Yeah.
Altadena fires or the Pacific
Mm-hmm.
Palisades fires, they didn't
Uh-huh.
even mention it. It's not
Oh,
even in the
wow.
narrative.
Wow.
And
That's so
these are
wild.
not natural disasters. There
No.
is direct evidence
Right.
that we are causing the frequency and intensity of these wildfires to explode.
Yeah.
And so, you know, if we, you know, to nerd out for a second, like,
Mm-hmm.
we have been trying with the UNFCCC to stay below 1.5
Okay.
degrees Celsius by 2030.
Okay.
If we blow past that, if we blow past 2 degrees, we'll
Yeah.
have 4 times the wildfires in California.
Wow.
Four
2 degrees.
times,
Wow.
not
Wow.
four more, four
Wow.
times. So
Wow.
the stakes could not be higher. And another thing, I lived in LA for many years, and something I
Okay.
talk about with all my California friends who are like ride or die staying in Cali.
Mm-hmm.
Climate scientists don't just call it a drought anymore. Climate scientists,
Right.
they call it a permanent drying out of the West until we
Wow.
remove the fossil fuels from the atmosphere. This is
Okay.
not going to get better, even though this year was the first year that there hasn't been drought in the state of California. That's just
Okay.
1 year,
Okay.
right? So
Right.
it's just, the cycles are just going to get worse because of the climate science.
Wow.
So
Wow.
wildfires are terrifying. I wouldn't wish them on my worst enemy.
Yeah. No, and just how we're talking, it makes me think of like who has the power to shape the narrative as well. Like yeah, I don't, it's so wild to me too. Like it just being, absent. And that's why I like think my, social justice activist eyes is kind of like, how can we like, change that? And how can, people in the communities help to shape that narrative? But yeah, it's
Keep
hard.
filming.
It's hard.
Keep filming. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of things we could say about the killing of Renee Good, but the
Hmm.
one thing from a story perspective I will say about
Right.
her and George Floyd is
Uh-huh.
that part of the reason that that had such an impact is
Right.
because we can see it with
Yeah.
our own eyes. And
Right.
so then when people are telling us another narrative that
Right.
doesn't
Right.
register with the facts of what we are seeing
Yeah.
because of somebody filming,
No, that's why
then
I'm glad for
we are able to
technology.
get out of
Yeah, and
it. Yeah.
phones. Yeah, yeah. That's one thing I am grateful for, that we all have access pretty much, like, most people have smartphones and we have cameras with us. And yeah, because sometimes I saw the administration, I was like, how could they not even like, it's not even stretching the truth. It's like a complete lie that they're telling about the situation. And yeah, yeah. No, I'm also glad that, there's actual evidence to show that this isn't the narrative that they're pushing. Something else did happen. Yeah.
Yeah, and not everything is as obvious as that. Like,
Right, right.
obviously, somebody obviously turning the wheel
Yeah.
away,
Yeah.
we often will have, like if there's 99% consensus among climate scientists, and there has been
Yeah.
for decades, they will point to the 1% as part of
Mm.
the, not obviously not saying that the
Yeah.
1% is usually bought and paid for by the fossil fuel industry,
Right.
you know? So
Right.
it's literally that person
Yeah.
that published a
Wild.
paper that was paid for by fossil fuels.
Yeah.
So they'll say the science isn't true, and I think that's a big problem still today. That I think the
Yeah.
last stat I saw was 30% of people still
Wow.
think that climate science is debatable and that it's not
That's a high
100%
percentage though,
confirmed.
30%. Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh my
yeah.
goodness. Yeah, but
And so
think,
that's a
yeah.
narrative problem. That's a big narrative problem, because we can't
Yeah.
just hold up a camera and see Renee Good
Right.
turning the wheel with the climate science. It's like it's this
Right.
more obtuse,
Right.
journal based, UN processes based situation
Yeah.
that can be really cumbersome for the average person. So that's one of the things I think I'm most proud of with the Years
Hmm.
Project is we work really hard to simplify
Uh-huh.
these complex ideas
Right.
that, and we do it step by step. So like
Yeah.
we'll often look at a piece and my 60 Minutes producer that I work with, who comes
Okay.
from 60 Minutes, he'll
Okay.
be like, okay, I don't understand from 1 to 3, like that middle piece, we need to
Uh-huh.
spell that out
Uh-huh.
for folks because we just expected them to understand this. And so we work
Yeah.
really hard on just making it very easy, not wonky,
Yeah.
understandable, and sticky so that people remember it.
Okay. No, that's beautiful. But thank you so much for your time today. I truly, had a wonderful time talking with you today. And just lastly, before we wrap up, how can people find you if they'd like to connect with you?
We are on all the socials,
Okay.
some more than others.
Hmm.
And you can follow us at Years of Living, which the name comes from our TV show that won the Emmy, Years of Living
Okay.
Dangerously.
Hmm.
We produced it with James Cameron, and it was the first TV show on the climate
Wow.
crisis.
Okay.
And you can actually watch that show for free on YouTube. We put the whole thing up for free, the whole first
Okay,
season.
cool. I gotta check that
And
out.
it makes celebrities correspondence. So that's why our
Okay.
handle is at Years of Living on some
Uh-huh.
platforms. It's at the Years Project on others. You can
Yeah.
always email us if you
Okay.
have a story idea or if you want to collaborate at
Hmm.
info@theyearsproject.com. And then you can
Hmm.
follow me in my chicken adventures as a
Okay.
chicken influencer at
I love.
Gung Ho Eco. I'm just
Okay.
kidding. I know very little about chickens. I just have them.
That's awesome. No, but you're doing so much wonderful work, so much impactful work, and I wish you all the best moving forward. And yeah, I hope that we could stay connected with each other too. And I hope that you have a good
I would love
rest of your
that.
day. Yeah.
Yeah, I would
Okay.
love that. Thank you for this. And I'm trying to think if there's anything that we missed.
Think no, yeah. If you'd like to leave, the listeners with any closing words, feel free to, share anything. I'd like to leave that open to you.
I mean, I think I'd like to reiterate this point again of, and it's not actually my point. It comes from a climate scientist named Michael Mann.
Okay.
And he always explains that there's no threshold past when we should stop trying to address the climate crisis, because every 10th of a degree change is lives lost. Every beach you've ever known lost. Icebergs melting, ice sheets melting, possible disruption of the AMOC, the Atlantic circulation that brings warm water and warm weather to Europe. So every 10th of a degree think of it as like the most critical 10th of a degree you can possibly think of, right? So instead of throwing up our hands en masse and saying like there's no way to solve that, I think we really have to remember that the sooner we accelerate our efforts, the better. But not all hope is lost just because we haven't solved the whole thing.
Oh, that's really beautiful. But yeah, thank you again. And I'd love to have you come back anytime and, explore any of these topics, again. But yeah, thank you for all the work that you do. And yeah, I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to eat some food and feed the cats.
Okay, sounds good. I'll talk with you again soon.
Okay, thanks, Denise.
Thank you for being here and tuning in to Voices That Propel Us, stories of justice, action, and community. Your presence in this movement matters. If today's conversation moved you, share it, talk about it, and keep the work going. Together, we're not just imagining change, we're making it. Until next time, stay bold, stay grounded, and stay in the fight.
Every time I feel so mad and sad and bad, I say to myself, relax, lean back, it's a brand new day. And every time I feel so down that a frown is all that